The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
I don't think Johnny Carson or Jay Leno or any of those ever expected that the Tonight Show would be coming under such fire. But who would have thought in all the 60 years that the Tonight Show's been on the air, that we would get to the point where, well, this is going back to Johnny Carson and then not before Jack Parr and Steve Allen. But what about 65, 70 years of the Tonight Show? Did we ever think that we would have a show where that Tonight Show was a horrible place to work? And that people were really upset working there because the host was a jerk. And obviously did a lot of things that people were not happy about. But that happens with talk shows, daytime and nighttime. And now Jimmy Fallon is the latest in a line of talk show hosts that are getting canceled. That people are just going after it. Not canceled from the syndication network head approach. We're talking about the staff that work on his show on a regular basis. Now, you know, good old King of Podcasts here has been talking about this kind of stuff for years now. I can go back and play clips, and I'm going to play a couple of clips of the other talk show hosts that also got themselves caught under fire, and eventually their shows went away after this said controversy started brewing up. So we'll get to Jimmy Fallon in a second. But the last one we really had that was really significant like this, now we had Kelly Clarkson. We'll talk about that very briefly, but let me tell you, James Corden's the last one that really got hammered about this, and this is why that guy has nowhere to be found since he left the show. But let's go and play back. This is going back to what? 2020, October 24, 2020. This is what I'm doing when I'm not podcasting, and I report on James Corden getting canceled, like Ellen DeGeneres, and we'll talk about Ellen in a moment too. They mentioned that James Corden is about to get canceled. According to new reports, the late-night talk show host, who has the image of being a nice guy in the industry, actually has one of the worst reputations in Hollywood. Because you know what? He probably has that nice guy syndrome, which I've talked about here on this program. When you're dating and you have a nice guy, do you think, oh, you're going to be the kind of person that's going to just make everybody happy, and you're going to make every woman feel like they're the best thing in the world, and you're going to make your fans feel the best in the world and fuzzy inside? No. According to new reports, the late-night talk show host has one of the worst reputations in Hollywood. And he's been called out for it for years, specifically with the likes of Ricky Gervais. Latest reports suggest that Corden's about to be on the proverbial ropes, the chopping block of cancel culture, if you will. A few years ago, James Corden really thought he was going to go on to Reddit and do an Ask Me Anything to promote carpool karaoke. The plan backfired when James Corden, age 40, was attacked by fans on the thread who called him names such as rude, asshole, see you next Tuesday, and asked when former host Craig Ferguson we were returning to replace him on the Late Late Show. Now, the thing is, the staff we never really heard much about, but that's always something I think that will come out someday. But the fact that James Corden was supposed to be like this nice guy and how he was handling things, no, not the same. Now, in that story from CCN going back to 2020, we got the real feeling of it because when the pandemic came in, everybody was at arms and people were really upset. He has been known for having a bad reputation behind the scenes for trying to get writers less pay. And that was talked about back then in 2020. So right in the middle of the pandemic, when the shows had to be done if it was done from his house or Zoom call, whatever it was. Like, remember, everyone was doing the Entertain from Home series where celebrities were doing all that, and it didn't work. And Ellen DeGeneres did the same thing when the pandemic came. She also became bad for business as well. And it's funny that James Corden was rumored to be the next person in line to replace Ellen DeGeneres. We heard about that, which would have been just as bad as Ellen DeGeneres, because we go back to her story, going back to April 8th, 2020, when her show was under fire. Do you remember that? Let me go ahead and play back another When I'm Not Podcasting clip that talks all about that. This is a show that has 17 years. So the fact that she's fallen down so far really hurts. And it sucks for her, but that's where she's at. And there's been people that have definitely talked to her badly, that have really put her down, and those that are trying to go and defend the celebrities are trying to support Ellen DeGeneres. Katy Perry, Kevin Hart, Jerry O'Connell, and others are also doing something about this. Also her wife. So, I mean, there's a lot there trying to go and just bring out the best. And honestly, Ellen DeGeneres is this generation's Merv Griffin. Big stars, really popular, a lot of excitement to the show, a really happy, nice show. Merv Griffin was that back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. If you don't know who he is, go back and Google him. Or, go and whatever you do. But that's what it comes down to that. Now, in this going on, she has gone through a lot. And we got rumors going on now. We have a lot of things that are going on. So I've been following the Ellen story because it is fascinating where everything is just falling apart. And so quickly, she's falling apart because of a lot of different things. But I don't want to get into the whole speculation as to what other things she's gotten into. We're only going to focus on her toxic workplace environment, which has been extensively talked about here on this show, because you know what? This is a testament for me being in defense and advocating for content creators, for those behind the scenes that make everybody sound good, look good, and really they do all the right work to make a show great. Because Ellen couldn't do all the work that all those other people do. And those executive producers, they're just being kiss asses to her. And they're holding their middle management jobs like pieces of shit to just basically make it where they want to go ahead and make it where they're they want to keep their jobs. And they're going to kiss Ellen's ass as much as they can because they want to hold on to their jobs. And because they can't find any other work anywhere else, probably because, they don't have any, they're just miserable people, I would imagine, especially when you're in middle management in a corporate outfit like that. But anyway, so Ellen DeGeneres' fall from grace, page 6 reports. So she was a darling of daytime TV talk shows, using her deadpan wit and easy demeanor to tease the best out of the A-list guests from Jennifer Aniston to Jamie Foxx. Then a single tweet, March 20th, and her image of Hollywood's nicest comedic powerhouses came crashing down. Now the once seemingly invincible talk diva is fighting for her professional life amid tales of racism, bullying, sexual misconduct, and then general toxicity behind her TV show. And then after the pandemic came through and where she was working out of her house, having a different outsourced crew, a camera crew, to go work at her house in Malibu, that the rest of her team was without pay and without any information as to whether they were ever going to get to go back to work. These are the things we already had dealt with before, and we've talked about on this program. Because I don't want to talk about both James Corden and Ellen DeGeneres on this program specifically. Now we go on to Jimmy Fallon. The story comes from Rolling Stone. 16 current and former staffers say that Jimmy Fallon's erratic behavior spoiled their dream of working on The Tonight Show. Now, the word is that while he is seen as warm and congenial on screen, he acts especially dismissive and irritable during production meetings, according to a former longtime employee talking to Rolling Stone. He stumbled through rehearsal in front of the studio audience, who typically sits on the rehearsals for the late night show. Employees talking to Rolling Stone said it's common knowledge that behind the scenes there are good Jimmy days where Jimmy's wit and charm are creatively on full display, and bad Jimmy days. And this particular day was a bad Jimmy day. That Jimmy Fallon seemed to be confused during rehearsal in 2017 when he crossed out jokes on the piece of paper he was holding, riffed with the audience for a bit, then quizzically looked back down on the same sheet of paper. He couldn't remember he had crossed it out himself. I was like, oh my God, he seems drunk. He doesn't know what he's doing. This could be awful. This could be the end of the show right here. And another staffer says he too witnessed the incident from a live studio feed inside the office. So 2 current, 14 former employees says that the Tonight Show's been a toxic workplace for years, far beyond the boundaries of what's been considered normal in the high-pressure world of late-night TV. If that's the kind of thing that's going on right now on late-night TV, then why have it? I can look back at the numbers and see what the audience looks like right now, but it's not doing well. I mean, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, they're all dwindling between 1.5 to 2.5 million viewers compared to what it used to be. Nothing even close. So former employees described the Tonight Show as a tense and pretty glum atmosphere, with some alleging they were belittled and intimidated by their bosses, including Fallon himself, middle managers, just like Ellen DeGeneres. Employees described being afraid of Fallon's outbursts and unexpected inconsistent behavior. And many of these staffers voiced their concerns through HR complaints, but problems at the Tonight Show persisted. And the 7 former employees, their mental health was impacted by alleged experiences working at the Tonight Show. Staffers say it was commonplace to hear people joking about wanting to kill themselves. And they would refer to guest dressing rooms in the office as crying rooms because that's where they would go to let out their emotions when they were upset with their alleged mistreatment. And former staffers talking to the Rolling Stone requested anonymity out of fear of retaliation. And there were various ranges of positions that they worked on. Production crew, office staff, writer's room. And many of the former staffers left because of that mental health issue. They were fired. Some of them from The Tonight Show. Rolling Stone contacted more than 50 Tonight Show employees, past and present. And after reaching out for representatives of Fallon and NBC, Rolling Stone reached out to another 30 current and former staffers. While many of them praised Fallon's immense talent and comedic gifts, not a single one agreed to speak on the record or had positive things to say about working on The Tonight Show. Now, you don't have to go ahead and judge that at all. They're all looking to hold on to their jobs. But the ones who were able to go ahead and speak candidly because they're former employees, I mean, you got to go ahead and think about that and consider. None of the program's 9 showrunners since 2014 comment about the program's namesake on the record, wouldn't give statements of support, as is common in the entertainment industry. So in 9 years, 9 showrunners? Shit. Jimmy, what are you doing? How is it that you can run through that many people on a regular basis? 9 showrunners in 9 years. That doesn't sound good. Representatives would not comment on the record for the story. And then Fallon would apologize to staffers in an all-hands Zoom call. Quote, "It's embarrassing and I feel so bad. Sorry if I embarrassed you and your family or friends. I feel so bad I can't even tell you." And then NBC spokesperson defended the program, but did not mention Fallon himself. "We are incredibly proud of The Tonight Show, and providing a respectful working environment is a top priority. As in any workplace, we have employees raise issues. There have been investigations and action taken upon where it's been appropriate. As is always the case, we encourage employees who feel experienced, da-da-da-da-da." So he went on a call and actually apologized to his staff. Wow. Embarrassing that we have to get to this point, and this is where we are. He goes on and says, "I want the show to be fun. It should be inclusive to everybody. It should be the best show." And then Chris Miller, the current showrunner, talks about that. He emailed the employees on Thursday morning of the Rolling Stone story and says that there's including past allegations of inappropriate behavior at the show. "While I know the reporter reached out to many of you before the piece ran, I don't believe that this written is reflective of the overall culture of our extraordinary team, and I'm so lucky and proud to work with her each and every day. The place described in the article is not the place I know. Still, it's disappointing to see something published that does not capture the positive and inclusive environment we've created together." And moving along into the Rolling Stone story. Jimmy Fallon's been doing the Tonight Show since 2009. When he first debuted, 11.3 million viewers watched his first episode. Well, first of all, he was doing Late Night with Jimmy Fallon in 2009. 5 years later, he took over Jay Leno in 2014. So again, 9 showrunners in 9 years. Now, Tonight Show has been averaging now between 3 and 4 million episodic viewers. So it's not talking about the live viewership. There are people that are watching in some way, shape, or form. Usually a lot of things is always where you're watching, clips of his show on YouTube or something that might go viral. So there's been, they said, a surprisingly dramatic and ugly shift in the working environment. And 3 employees who worked with Jimmy Fallon on Late Night and then were added to the Tonight Show team. They were added, the pressure when the program transitioned, there was a lot of pressure added. And there was a change because Michael Shoemaker, who was at the helm of Late Night's run during Fallon's run, didn't go to the Tonight Show. He decided to stay around to produce Late Night with Seth Meyers. Now, the program has had 6 different groups of leadership teams in its 9 years on TV. Jesus. And Chris Miller's held on to the job as a showrunner now since March 2022. And one staffer, actually, a former staffer, says, I just don't think they've landed on a leader who can keep it together. As there's been a chaotic atmosphere among staffers, many of whom have lost faith in senior leadership. Nobody told Jimmy no. Everybody walked on eggshells, especially showrunners. You never, a former employee says, you never knew which Jimmy we were going to get, and when he was going to throw a hissy fit, look how many showrunners went so quickly. We know they didn't last long. One other employee talks about an anxiety attack the first time working at the show and being put on anti-anxiety medication for the first time. Others talked about declining mental health, hair thinning, weakened nail beds. 4 other employees are in therapy now because of their experiences. And they've experienced suicidal ideation as a result of the working environment. The pressure that television has right now, it's already bad enough that network TV, there's just not much going on for it left. Advertisers are flocking away. And so Jimmy Fallon, I'm sure the pressure's on him because he's got a big contract he has to go and fulfill, and the audience is supposed to stay around. But the cord cutting is happening a lot. People are going to streaming, and the habit of newer viewers are not to watch late night TV. And let's just say it like this. Let's just point it out loud, because there's no other way to say it. As we know, comedy is no longer the way it is. It's no longer the way it should be. It's not funny anymore. It's hard enough to find a good movie, a comedy, when I go to the movies on a regular basis. I've gone to 41 movies this year. And I watched 6 comedies. And 1 comedy really got me laughing. Otherwise, everything else, no. I'm really struggling to find comedy. It's just not even there. And put it like this, okay? The politics stuff, I mean, that was always a part of late night TV anyway. But when they go to the level of, like, when you're bringing on politicians and you're bringing on certain stars that are going to be talking about politics, like droning along. I mean, people hear that stuff all the time. Politics is a bad soap opera. And I really have thought about that. But it is. It's like a really shitty old soap opera. And people hear the same people over and over. Once in a while, there's a new wrinkle, a new story arc, and we're kind of interested in it. But that's what politics is. That's why I don't like talking about it. That's why I keep my shows apolitical across the board, because I don't want to talk about it. It's not interesting to me. And when I look at what content we get on a regular basis, tonight, I was just watching a clip of Johnny Carson's YouTube channel. And it's of Paul Williams in full Planet of the Apes makeup gear, because he had to finish late for a film, one of the filming days of Beneath the Planet of the Apes. One of those, those sequels that he kept doing on over and over. And while they're doing that, he was late to get to the Tonight Show because he was going to perform. And so he just decided, okay, I'm going to stay in gear. I'm going to stay in character in this orangutan outfit and come out, perform. It's a rainy day or whatever it is. It sings a song pretty well, gets a lot of laughs, and the guy just has joke after joke after joke. But, I mean, he's not even so much of a comedian as he is a songwriter, and a great songwriter at that. A singer-songwriter. But, yeah, you look at this, and I'm like, you're not giving us anything to really laugh about. As we hear, there are a couple of different segments that Jimmy Fallon might have, where he's doing, games with the celebrities, which is fine. The karaoke stuff. Jimmy Fallon had James Corden had carpool karaoke, which is fine. I mean, the kind of laughter you could have. Jay Leno could have a good monologue and do some funny things, and he'd have some other things he was doing. Craig Ferguson was always funny. Always funny. Like, his interviews were just... Sometimes I just couldn't believe what he would do, especially when it was always the girls that he would have on the shows, and constantly just a flirtatious, but this kind of like cool, calm demeanor kind of feel, so sarcastic, so smooth, suave, like just the way he acted, but he was so good at it. And then just stupid gimmicks that he had, like Craig the Skeleton and all these other things he would be doing. It was just wonderful. For comedians to be depressed, these are people that are all supposed to be the work of comedy. And I don't know what they did to get to this point, but how are you building a comedy show, building a late night entertainment show when everybody is miserable? More on this story. Another employee, mentally, quote, I was in the lowest place of my life. I didn't want to live anymore. I thought about taking my life all the time. I knew deep down I would never actually do it, but in my head, I'm like, why do I think about this all the time? Another employee lost 20 pounds during their time under showrunner Grant Betterman. They were on the edge all the time, cried themselves to sleep every night. The pressure is incredible. But that pressure is desperation on behalf of the Tonight Show. Like, they're trying to live up to a reputation, and they're not. And that also contributes to the downfall of this show and the others. All right. I'm going to tell you like this. When Greg Gutfeld on Fox News is getting better ratings than all the other shows, I've passed by that to watch the monologue. It's not funny. The comedians they have on are not funny. They're just as bad as all the other comedians we hear out there, but they're not anyway like it's pushed canned laughter almost. Nothing on late night's funny. Nothing at all. So I don't know what we're trying to figure out here. And then other employees would always feel like, well, you should be grateful you have a job. You should be grateful you have this position of the show. You're on the Tonight Show. Well, this is not the Tonight Show they asked for. This is something else. And most employees who spoke to Rolling Stone, it's common knowledge that Fallon's temperament, mood, and treatment of staffers is erratic. They've witnessed Fallon snap at crew members, express irritation over the smallest of things, berate and belittle staffers out of frustration. And 3 former employees says he berated them in front of their colleagues and crew members. If Jimmy's in a bad mood, everyone's day is fucked. People won't joke around the office. They won't stand around and talk to each other. It was very much like focus on whatever it is that you have to do because Jimmy's in a bad mood, and if he sees it, he might fly off. And there's been rumors and gossip about Jimmy Fallon having a relationship with alcohol. And there was a story in the New York Post that ran in 2016 that NBC executives were concerned about Jimmy Fallon's drinking. And Fallon denied it in a New York Times profile published in 2017. And then 2 employees saw Fallon seemingly inebriated at work in 2017. Another 2 employees, 2019-2020, thought they smelled alcohol on Fallon's breath when they entered an elevator with him during the workday. And 8 other employees, former employees, the behavior of Jimmy Fallon seemed to be dependent on if he appeared to be hungover for the night before. Quote, when something was wrong, we all knew we had to how to behave afterward, which was some sort of avoiding eye contact and don't make another mistake. It would happen over the smallest thing. We wouldn't have to shut the whole thing down. The sketch isn't happening. And when things like that would happen, you would just beat yourself up. And there was widespread fear from the people who would interact with him, employees would say. Some people would get nice, Jimmy, but that sometimes wasn't not a lot. It was really, really sad this really talented man could create such a horrible environment for the people there. I feel sad for these people. You can't deny this is going on, and the apology's been made to his staff. The show's been suffering for 9 years. Look, I don't know what Jimmy Fallon did where he left from late night to move up to this. Maybe he wasn't ready for this role. To be honest, Conan O'Brien should have had that spot. Okay, Conan O'Brien should have been Tonight Show host, but he wasn't. It's like where David Letterman should have taken over. He could have taken over to Jay Leno, but at least Jay Leno was good and always had a lot of experience being the guest host on The Tonight Show. But this right here, man, I don't know. Now, there's also parts where celebrities might have been a part of this. And 2 employees remember witnessing Jimmy Fallon scold a crew member who was in charge of his cue cards in the middle of taping with comedian Jerry Seinfeld. They said it was an uncomfortable moment. Seinfeld told Fallon to apologize to the cue card production member, which he then allegedly did. Employees say this incident, which felt awkward to watch, did not make it to the version of the show that appeared on TV. It was very awkward, and Jerry was like, you should apologize to him, almost trying to make it a joke. It was one of the strangest moments ever, and so many people were there, so it's kind of hard to forget. Now, Seinfeld was reached out for requests, but no comment. But Seinfeld sent a statement to Rolling Stone. Quote, "This is so stupid. I remember this moment quite well. I teased Jimmy about a flub, and we all had a fun laugh about how rarely Jimmy is thrown off. It was not uncomfortable at all. Jimmy and I still occasionally recall it and laugh. Idiotic twisting of events." Yeah, so get me it clean. Now, I must say this too, that Jimmy Fallon is doing a Tonight Show in the worst time period possible. A lot of division between people. People are so sensitive about anything in comedy, which used to be comedy, which was blue, where people would offend others. Equal opportunity offender. Well, we can't do it anymore. Listen to this. You want to know why also there's been issues now? They talked to a former showrunner here. I don't have the name for it, but they say that there was now, most recently now, they have regular internal diversity and culture meetings, and the Tonight Show has a diversity and inclusion council. And employees say they're hopeful they wanted to make lasting changes to the show, but they were let go when another showrunner took over. Granite Betterman took over, bullying and mistreating staff, 5 employees say. One black employee says Granite Betterman kept asking him, "What is going on with your hair?" The employee also witnessed that she would make comments about how much food they would eat, saying the staffers were just eating a lot today and not caring about what we look like. And 2 employees said they were also mistreated by another showrunner, bullying, intimidating, and yelling at them. Another employee talks about these are the worst bosses they ever had in their lives. They use the position of power to bully and treat the staff that way, and the network is aware of how they treat people. They not only continue to enable it, but they reward it. And 5 employees said they spoke to HR about their experiences behind the scenes in their exit interviews when they voluntarily left the show, as well as during their time of employment. One longtime employee says they never reported their issues to HR because early on in their tenure, they saw colleagues of theirs attempting to speak to human resource representatives and subsequently got fired from the show. They don't protect us. They don't do anything for us. The story continues, and there's so much more to this. This is sad. Now, at this point, tonight's show went dark in early May when the writer's strike began. And the show employs members of the Writers Guild of America, which otherwise have gone on summer hiatus later that month. Otherwise. And then NBC and Fallon himself reportedly paid staffers salaries for 3 weeks in the midst of the strike. Others put on an unpaid leave of absence. And then you have the thing what happened where the new limited podcast Strike Force 5, where all the late night show hosts, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers, John Oliver, all put together a show while the writer's strike continues. Proceeds from the podcast would go towards the host staff members while they're out of work due to the strike. Now, here's a problem with the Tonight Show and the future of it as a result of this. Now, the Tonight Show is produced by Universal Television and Fallon's production company, Electric Hot Dog. It was renewed by NBC until 2026. But now there's been a shift in leadership in the past year with Miller taking over as showrunner, Chris Miller, and staffers say the show's track record of revolving door of showrunners, as well as Fallon's alleged behavior, leave them pessimistic about the future of tonight's show, what it will look like. And so employees want long-term changes in the work environment. They want Fallon and NBC to be held accountable and to take employees' concerns seriously to change the environment for the better. Look, I mean, with what this is, this kind of environment, with the kind of money they're paying Jimmy Fallon, to not be handling the business of what this show is all about. Now, I understand that some of these shows, the staffers that are working on these shows keep the host, the talent, away from the staff. And so we don't know what goes on behind the scenes anyway. We can't say all of that. But all this right here from Rolling Stone, wow, this is bad. Really bad. And there's not much else to say about it except for the fact that, I don't know, where network TV or all these other TV shows think they're going to be by putting out talk shows and having this kind of behavior. Or if anybody wants to work in television at all, when they have this kind of behavior and this kind of track record, on a particular show. Like, all that's bad. Now, I think the other thing, too, is that Jimmy Fallon, in his time as the host of The Tonight Show, he's done some things, obviously, to not talk politics on the show. He's tried to avoid it, but then he had no choice. You know, he's being forced to go in the route that he has to go to. He probably doesn't have that much autonomy on what he could talk about on the show anyway. And there are times he can actually pull some gold out of things that he does on the show. But at the moment, no one is. All the late night talk show hosts are bad. All of them are very bad. Now, of course, I'm comparing to what I got to watch when I was growing up. You know, I mean, Craig Ferguson is not too long ago. Tom Snyder, David Letterman, Johnny Carson. You know, we had Arsenio. We had good hosts on there. We used to have a lot of good shows like that. And notice nobody's coming in to go ahead and create a new show that's going to go ahead and replace. It's just tonight's show might just go by the wayside. I mean, at some point they're going to have to. There's no way they can keep this up. And so there are some major problems going on now. And where do things go from here about this story? And what happens? And so Jimmy's out there trying to mea culpa, but now the word's out there. Now we're hearing the real story of who he is. And now it looks bad. And he looks like an absolute jerk for everything that he did. What happens next? It's bad, but he did it. And I don't know if he's going to go ahead and be able to have to. I'm wondering if the show will recover after that. Like, there's a reason where they're talking about the fact that this piece came out in September to attack Jimmy Fallon. Because the thing was, this story was being held on for a while, they said. Okay? It wasn't like they were necessarily going to do anything about this right away, but the story was actually heard about, and this could have come out at any time. But now it's done. And everybody's talking about it now. It's gone viral. It's bad. And everybody's talking about it. This is where Jimmy Fallon, for whatever he is, he's going to have to take now a lot of what's happening here and just realize he really screwed up. It's been like this for a long time. What happens next? And the thing is, too, you think about the fact that I hadn't looked at what his contract was, but I know he makes a lot of money on that contract. And I have to go back and look at what that is right now because he's making quite a bit. His deal is through 2026. And a 5-year contract extension was signed for $80 million. Going back to Radar Online, Radar Online talks about this. And the Radar Online talked about that the Tonight Show's losing the ratings war to Greg Gutfeld. 19 months after the NBC gave him, Jimmy Fallon, a 5-year contract extension for $80 million, the Tonight Show is drawing less than 1.3 million viewers. Of course, they said 4 million after all, you know, people were watching after the fact, but yeah, that's pretty bad. At the beginning of when he took over the series 9 years ago, 11 million viewers, and to have it down to 1. He's also being bested in the ratings before the strike by Stephen Colbert's CBS Late Show. A source from NBC regrets the deal he got, and the network knows the days are gone when tens of millions of people would tune in for the Tonight Show, but they were counting on Jimmy to do better than this. Well, but there's been other things going on. As we've heard, Jamie Grenette Betterman also quitting after a toxic workplace investigation. It continues to happen. It doesn't even matter who's over there. The whole environment is toxic. It's bad. So whatever happens next with Jimmy Fallon, I don't know. But they could go ahead and pay him out his contract and get out of there. But the problem is that $80 million is a lot. Basically a buyout with 3+ years left on the contract. Another $48 million they got to go ahead and pay him off. And then what do they do with that show? If it were me, I think they would have to go ahead and do something where, I don't know what they do with late night at all. Because with late night, NBC puts a lot of time into it because they have so many hours that have been filling with that. For a while they had 2.5, 3 hours a night to fill of late night programming. But that's going to go away now. Who knows what they're going to do next? It's very bad. And there's nothing else that can be said about it. I keep saying that, but it's like I'm shocked to hear about all this and where it is now. And we'll just leave it there. I'm not going to say much more about it. Story for the New York Times comes in, and producer deals by Warner Brothers have been suspended. And the LA Times talks about that this could actually help create a breakthrough on the Writers Guild talks, or it might deepen the conflict. So, high-profile producer deals. Warner Brothers has suspended several of them. And some of them are prolific filmmakers that include Greg Berlanti, J.J. Abrams, and Mindy Kaling. So the top showrunners late Wednesday, they were halting payments to producers for their staff salaries, office space, and other compensation due to the Writers Guild strike with the AMPTP. Warner Brothers and sister HBO put dozens of other agreements with writer-producers on hiatus earlier this year. But this was noteworthy because of the biggest names in TV that got hit with this. The deals were not canceled entirely, but payments will now stop for the duration of the strike. Other major studios, Universal Pictures, Paramount, Disney Entertainment, are expected to follow suit. And major film producers, so again, some of these that are actors turned producers, or some that are just high profile, that just, they really got a whole lot of money on their and the deals that they have for producing content for said network or for said movie studio or television studio, they're getting affected. For the media companies, suspending deals brings additional cost savings as their once bustling film lots have become ghost towns. So as we knew they were going to save some money off of what they didn't have to produce, but now they're stopping to pay some of the people they have still under retainer for the deals they're supposed to have as high-profile producers. Netflix's big spending on talent also put pressure on Hollywood's other studios to offer generous deals to attract and retain their top producers to keep content pipelines humming. But now they're coming under scrutiny as studios look to cut more costs while the strike is happening. Suspensions were first reported by Deadline and could carry a side benefit by spurring movement in the stalled talks between the Writers Guild and the Alliance of Motion Picture and TV Producers. SAG-AFTRA followed the writers in mid-July. We already know about that. And studio executives until now hadn't wanted to create additional headaches by alienating some of their most lucrative producers. They continued to receive compensation from studios as they worked on various TV projects. But now these producers must find ways to pay their staff or furlough them. So more financial pain across the entertainment industry and the businesses that support it. And the deals being cut off could be a catalyst to motivate some producers to become more involved in negotiations. Studio executives have become increasingly frustrated by the lack of progress in talks and are looking for ways to build momentum to resolve the strikes before the businesses sustain lasting damage. It's a shitty thing they had to do, but maybe this is something that will get, with more people that have more money landing in that have not been in the fight of the strike, then they'll probably get involved and they'll probably want to say, let's go and stir the picket lines back up. Let's go. So last time we talked about the strike was the August of the letter that AMPTP released last month, which triggered outrage among striking writers. We know that there wasn't much on there that actually was put out. And for months, top media executives expressed exasperation over what they would describe as the unwillingness by the WGA to bend on major issues: size of writers' rooms, additional compensation for successful streaming shows based on viewership, not subscribers. And privately, executives have said some showrunners were frustrated by the stalemate because their projects were in limbo. Guild officials have strongly disputed the claim of any division in the ranks and accused their counterparts of offering half measures. 3 sources close to the companies who were not authorized to speak publicly said some showrunners have sat on the sidelines because they didn't want to be ostracized for being out of step with the Guild's leadership at a time when there was support nationwide for increased union activism. Well, now we're going to see some more people getting involved in the fight because now their money's being taken away and their staff is getting their money taken away from them too, right? Warner Brothers Discovery disclosed to the SEC profits for the year would be $300 to $500 million less than previously forecast. And the company previously estimated the strikes would be resolved by Labor Day, but now many hope the disputes will be resolved by early October. Remember, early October is the key, because if they don't get a deal in place by early October, then the network TV season, the entire 2023-2024 television season is a wash. We will have more movies that will go pushed back because they won't have anything ready. Like, it's amazing right now, some of the movies we're seeing right now that are getting pushed up, because when I look at what's going on now, I'm seeing movies that are being added into the mix that we saw nothing promoted for all of a sudden. Like the Thanksgiving movie, I don't even know about that coming up, but it's just starting to come into play. And I'm like, wow, that really happened quickly. So the release schedule is quickly moving along. When I look at what's coming up now for the end of the year, we're seeing some movies getting switched around. Dune 2 was moved out. We know about that. And at the moment, there's a lack of movies now being pushed out. Unlike what we had in the summertime, a lot less movies are going widescreen release. Just in September, we're getting 2 at a time right now. And then September 29th, we get 4 movies coming out all at the same time. Then in October, it slows down. Exorcist Believer is the only widescreen release on October 6th. October 13th is Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour, which is going to go bonkers all over the place. Killers of the Flower Moon, October 20th. And then Halloween weekend, Five Nights at Freddy's Freelance in Sight. And then November, we don't have Dune, so something else has to take over that place on November 3rd. Nobody's taken that spot yet. And then 3 movies on November 10th. Marvel's is one of those. Thanksgiving weekend, or the week of Thanksgiving, 4 movies coming out now for that. December 1st, The Bike Riders. I didn't even hear about that movie, but that's coming out December 1st. Wonka is coming up on December 15th. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is still coming out Christmas week. Then you got Migration, Boys in a Boat, Color Purple, and Ferrari, all coming in through Christmas to the end of the year. So things slow down for the movies right now. And with that early October stoppage, I mean, maybe things will change so that 2024 is not going to be a wash where we're not going to get that many movies like we did in 2022? Because remember, we had a lack of movies going on and where we just didn't have much going on. Now, as for the shows, some of the people that have been affected by this, Greg Berlanti's one, and he is the person who guided Max as the flight attendant, Netflix's You, and shows like Arrow, Superman and Lois, the DC shows that were on the CW, and negotiated a 4-year deal before the strikes. J.J. Abrams, who runs Bad Robot Production Company with his wife Katie McGrath, their mega deal has been suspended. Best known for doing Star Wars The Force Awakens, creating shows like Lost, signed one of the richest deals in the industry in 2019. Kaylee, right, most recently had the Velma animated series for Warner Brothers and the Sex Lives of College Girls for Max. They were shut down by the strikes earlier this summer. Bill Lawrence, best known for the Apple TV Plus hit comedy Ted Lasso and Shrinking, his deal suspended. And the same thing also happened with Chuck Lorre, creator of Big Bang Theory, Young Sheldon, 2.5 Men. His deal suspended in May to adhere to WGA work stoppage guidelines. And John Wells, the force behind ER, his deal with Warner Brothers also got paused in June, according to knowledgeable people. The strike continues to affect tremendously. No answers in sight. So a couple of stories I want to bring up in here that have been also pinned into the mix that I want to go and talk about. In the music biz, TikTok has been a lot in the headlines, and we're getting more of that going on as well. As TikTok killed the music video star, the music video artist strategy. And I've been hearing about that a lot too, where some experts say that, you know what, the music video is not necessary anymore. That, you know, every record label always thinks that you need to go and be doing something with that you need to go ahead and put out a video to help push your music that's to streaming. But now they're trying to say that's not the case anymore. Elias Slide at Billboard says artists are taking money that would have once gone to full-length visuals and using it to make bite-sized clips that gain traction on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. They refer to Noah Kahan having a breakout 2023. His song Dial Drunk, which got a feature with Post Malone, has pulled in more than 800 million online demand streams across his catalog. But he hasn't released a music video this year. Instead, he's doing 15-second clips that are triggering activity on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. None of the top 4 songs of the Billboard Hot 100 as of last week. Remember that we had 3 songs that hit the Hot 100 that were all country. And now we have a new number 1 with I Remember Everything with Zach Bryan and Casey Musgraves. Country continues to be on top. But here's the thing. These artists, Morgan Wallen, Luke Combs, Oliver Anthony, they put out live clips for themselves. Morgan Wallen released a performance video for his hit, but they never had a traditional music video. None of them did. Evan Blum, a creative director who shot popular TikTok clips for Demi Lovato and Flyana Boss, says that the only problem with music videos is that nobody sees them. Aside from that, he quips. They're great. Yeah, you're seeing them on YouTube, but people are starting to get, I guess, accustomed to watch YouTube Shorts and not YouTube. But yeah, YouTube still has videos. And I'll admit, I struggle to go ahead and catch certain new music videos out there to watch. It's unfortunate there's not a place to go and watch it. MTV could still be a place for it or something like that, but they're not. For roughly 4 decades, music videos played a crucial role in minting hits, allowing artists to immerse fans in a visual vocabulary or wow them with dance moves. The influence is waning since attention shifted from TV to phone screens. Lady Gaga and Drake have invested heavily in clips that roamed around the internet. Stars like Doja Cat and Dua Lipa go viral and gain steam with eye-catching visuals of their own. And the change is because of TikTok, hooking a generation on bite-sized vertical clips. One major label marketing executive says that if you brought up a music video to play to plenty of kids, they'd be like, what's that? It's just not where the audience is. The audience is on TikTok. They're right. Can't tell you how many times I'm actually doing my own content, and I base it off what I watch on TikTok. My Depend on the Debauchery series is very much responsible for that. Let me tell you that. Paul Hurricane, global head of music content and partnerships at TikTok, says that, quote, long-form videos will continue to be one of the key forms of musical creative expression, but that the rise of short-form video on TikTok represents a new approach to music promotion and discovery, which has significantly lowered the barrier to creativity and expression for artists. YouTube also rolled out YouTube Shorts not too long ago. We know about that. And this intensified the emphasis on short-form content. YouTube's global head of music, Lyra Cohen, called Shorts just the entry point on the platform, leading fans to discover the depths of an artist's catalog, including music videos. In its landscape, full-length music videos often fail to resonate. They talked to Cassie Petrie, co-founder of Crowdsurf, a digital marketing company. If her clients, she says, release a music video, she frequently chops it up into snackable clips that can be uploaded to short-form platforms. We'll see millions of views on the short form, and the long form will only get like 50,000. Let me tell you this. I must admit, and I want to go ahead and shout out to Spreaker, who hosts all of my content. Thank you so much for this. Spreaker is wonderful. If you haven't been with them to subscribe on their hosting platform to get your podcasts out there, let me go a quick plug for them. Spreaker.com. 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 They actually tipped me off to an app called Headliner, which I've been using now to create small clips for all of my social media. So if you're starting to see some of the shows and you see some of the clips of the programming on Instagram, Trends, TikTok, Twitter, or formerly now X, not so much Facebook because Facebook is kind of tough, but I've been putting it out there. And even on LinkedIn, I'll put some of that too. And I'm getting used to the fact of doing quick clips, but I just need something quick, something a little bit animated. It's nothing that has to be on my video or anything visual, extra visual or not, because I don't need to do that. She goes on and talks about that. Managers and marketers say the cost of music videos can range from as low as $5,000 to as high as $250,000, and some 7 figures for a handful of superstars. Now, music discovery is fragmented. There are no mass media to ensure a large audience for these videos as MTV used to. Artist teams used to spend even more if they hope to corral viewers who are overwhelmed with a glut of audio-visual content. You have to pay for visibility. They also say there's a more flexible strategy at a time when artists and labels have little control over what's going to be a hit. The more a song gets out there via short clips, the better it should do. If that's not what's happening, better to learn that before sinking $50,000 to a full video. There's still instances where traditional videos still make sense. Latin music and hip-hop, the audience for music discovery, they say, from a music senior executive, they say that the audience for music discovery in those genres are still living very strongly on YouTube. On the other hand, pop and R&B are where music videos are kind of dying, especially for developing artists. They don't move the needle for discovery. Superstars remain, of course, the exception to every rule. They both have the money and the fervent supporters to do whatever they want. And there's more going on when it comes to TikTok and how they're doing, how significant they are. A story came out from Variety and their intelligence platform about how it's attacking on the music streaming biz. So now, TikTok Music is making a steady worldwide expansion, and parent company ByteDance retired its Resso brand in Indonesia and Brazil, and really relaunching with TikTok Music in those countries, as well as Mexico, Australia, and Singapore in July. It's going to take time to dethrone long-time incumbents like Spotify and Apple Music, and even the brand and growth potential of TikTok must be taken seriously. And when they look at TikTok users by country, millions upon millions. 116 million users in the U.S., 113 in Indonesia, 184 million in Brazil, 62 million in Russia, and so on. Now, TikTok Music has not confirmed whether it plans to eventually roll out TikTok Music in the U.S. A current beta testing in the app's third and fourth largest market signaled that an entry into U.S. could be right around the corner. They did file a patent with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office for TikTok Music in May of last year. And among consumption by U.S. adults, TikTok has been the one that's been growing in total daily minutes as opposed to Facebook and Instagram. Both Instagram is still growing, but TikTok is growing more, and Facebook is diminishing. From what people know about TikTok Music so far, subscriptions is subscription only, and users must have a TikTok account to access it. Now, in terms of total daily minutes consumed across all devices, TikTok surpassed Instagram in 2022, set to top Facebook by 2025 for the amount of minutes watched. For younger generations, growing up on TikTok and seeking a more social experience, TikTok could capture younger consumers' loyalty by creating a truly all-inclusive entertainment ecosystem. It's already common knowledge that TikTok is a critical music discovery tool. Makes sense to expand on that by creating a place to actually listen to full tracks without ever leaving the app. So it could pose a serious threat to the major streaming services. It could potentially present a better opportunity for record labels like Warner Music Group, Universal Music Group, and Sony, as additional licensing partnerships will create new revenue opportunities for artists under these labels. And by the way, they're doing a thing now behind the mic. They're doing a new music discovery contest now where TikTok users can actually vote on particular TikTok artists and see if one of them can get a recording contract. That's going on right now. The music streaming business is already in the midst of an industry-wide shift. The economics of the business are more important than ever, and the competition has been growing fierce over the past several years. And TikTok Music slowly infiltrating in the category, all the major platforms should be armed and ready to take on the new competitive threat or risk losing market share. It's all coming into play. The disruptions continue. And when you look at this overall aspect now, you got to say to yourself, if these things continue to go along and there are no answers to this, what's going to happen? It's sad, but there's not much more to be said about it. A lot of issues. We constantly keep seeking things right now when it comes to what the internet does. Okay? What online is doing right now when it comes to AI, when it comes to efficiency and the human component of entertainment. Because, okay, the movie studios, the writers, the actors, they're competing against content creators, whether they like it or not. And they're fighting for their livelihood to continue to do what they've been always doing. Meanwhile, 17,000 film and TV business jobs have been shed in August as the strike continues to hurt Hollywood. So the entertainment capital is no longer the entertainment capital anymore. It's starting to be lost by other places. We're going to close out the show for tonight. That's it for the Broadcasters Podcast. And for all of you listeners that have been finding the show because of my appearances with Lou Pate, the Mazzoli Army, all of you out there, thank you for listening in and finding the show as you always do. And if you haven't had a chance to check, I have redesigned kingofpodcasts.com. So now you can find all the episodes. All you got to do is click on the show logo at the very top of the page. Takes you right to the Broadcasters Podcast and all past episodes. And actually, the Broadcasters Podcast page, when you go to it now, is excellent because now you can find all the episodes going back to 2018, all sitting in one spot. So when you want to go and find it, you can find all that right there and then just go right through and continue. It's perfect. And of course, I have my other programs, which I do on a regular basis. But everything you can find about the show is at kingofpodcasts.com. Kingofpodcasts.com. My social media. Find the Broadcasters Podcast, all past episodes. If you haven't done so, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I also put the show there every week at King of Podcasts. Go look for it. Subscribe, like, and share the videos. Please do that. That would be great. And until next week, remember that content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.